Okay, we're going to get started, everybody. So take your seats. I'd like to welcome everybody here. My name is Joe Meinert. I'm the City of Bowie Planning Director. I'm the one that sent the public notice out. If you received a letter, it was from me. I posted some signs in the neighborhood to encourage you all to come out tonight. This is an informational meeting. It's really to learn more about what's being discussed here. This is what's coming up is a water and sewer plan amendment. That's a Prince George's County Council decision. They have to decide whether to reclassify the property so that it can get water and sewer and that it can provide, submit a subdivision plan. So at this point in time, there's no actual plan that's been filed. It's only a request to change it from one category to the next so that they can submit a subdivision plan. So with us tonight is the development team and the property owner. This is Mr. Tom Haller, the representative. We're basically going to let them make a short presentation to fill you in on where they are. And then it's really an informal question and answer session. It's not a hearing, so just hold your questions and we'll just answer them in turn. And when we're done asking questions, then the meeting will be over and you're welcome to stick around and talk with them afterwards. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Tom Haller.
Thanks, Joe, very much. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. As Joe said, my name is Tom Haller. I'm a development attorney here in the county. My offices are in Largo, and I've done work in the City of Bowie for many, many years. With me tonight is Paul Woodburn with the engineering firm of Den Dyer Associates. Their offices are on Woodmore Road and 193. And Paul's the one who put together this concept plan. But also with me tonight are Mr. Bill Byron and Mr. Dave Byron, who are owners of the property. And I'm going to have them come up in a minute and give you a little bit of background as well. But I just wanted to get started by just talking to you a little bit about what we have submitted and what's being looked at now. So in Prince George's County, we have something called water and sewer categories. And I remember when I first started practicing law, doing land use law, one of the first things I had was water and sewer category. And of course I said, what the heck is a water and sewer category? Why do they even have them? And the process dates back into the 60s and 70s when there was a real issue with water and sewer capacity, about whether or not there was sufficient capacity for WSSC to be able to provide water and sewer. And so what happened was the county divided up properties into different categories to kind of indicate where they are on the ladder. And so some areas of the county are designated as not getting public water and sewer ever. Rural areas of the county, east of 301, that area, those kind of areas, they don't get public water and sewer. The rest of the county is divided up into categories, what we call 3, 4, and 5. Category 5 means that you have to develop if you develop your property, you have to use public water and sewer, but it needs to be evaluated for adequacy, whether we have sufficient capacity, whether the lines are in close proximity, etc. If you're in category 4, they've made a determination that you are in a position where you can access the public water and sewer lines, and then you can move forward to submit development plans showing how you would do that. And then when you get into category 3, that means that you're either approved to connect to water and sewer or you already have water and sewer. Anybody that lives on a lot in the area is in category 3. So our property is in category 5, so it's designated for future public water and sewer. And what we have submitted is a request to the county to be evaluated for adequacy and proximity to the water and sewer lines that would serve the property. And there are water lines in Rustic Hill Drive, there's sewer lines behind us. And so we've asked the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission in Prince George's County to evaluate the adequacy of those lines to accommodate a subdivision of this property. If the water and sewer category change is approved and we go into category 4, then we can proceed with the process of submitting a subdivision application. The plan that you see here tonight, which I will invite you to come up later because you can't see much from back where you are, is just a concept plan that Paul has put together that was designed to conform to the zoning requirements and shows what we think is an approximate number of lots that the property could yield. It hasn't been reviewed by anybody, it hasn't been reviewed by the city, it hasn't been reviewed by the county. We're not in a position where we can even file it yet because we got to go through this first water and sewer evaluation process. But we've at least put that together to give you an idea of what we're thinking. in terms of what we would do with the property in the future. So with that background, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specific proposal. I want to invite Bill and Dave up to give you a little bit of background about themselves and about the property, so that you can have an understanding of their involvement with the process.
Thank you, Tom. I'm Dave Byron. It's my brother Bill. Our mother, Ann Riley, started the Montessori school back in the 60s and purchased the property that we're referring to back in 71. So we've had it in our family for quite some time. Bill and I both worked there, went to school there actually when we were little, and we moved on to the property back in 1975. So we grew up there. We both went to high school at Bowie High School. So our mother had run the school for a little over 40 years. She passed away back in 2009. And we were under the direction of my sister that continued the school for some time. Unfortunately, we just, it didn't, I think through economic times and things like that, the school didn't survive. But we really love the property. It's been part of our family for quite some time. Our thought was to try and see the property. It's not really conducive to continue to operate as a school. The buildings were temporary to begin with. They were modular buildings, so they're really not intended to have a lifetime beyond, I think, 30 years or 40 years or so. So we wanted to explore options of what we would do with the property, and we really wanted to honor our mom by keeping it as retaining the aesthetics of the property as best we could. So this is kind of where we are, and we appreciate Tom and the work that these guys have done, and certainly open to answer any questions. Bill, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I would just say that ditto everything my brother said, that I feel like today is a good opportunity to really get to know the neighbors and understand questions, concerns, or thoughts, so that can all be taken into consideration. I've been involved. We both live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have families there, and so we are very involved in the communities down in Charlotte, and so we came up here to personally be here to be available to answer questions and things like that through these guys. So we hope that we get some good dialogue and a good understanding of what's been going on and what everybody's thoughts are. So I think that's just a rough draft of what's going on. We'll let these guys comment more on the details, but I think Dave, I think you summed it up well for our side. Okay. So yeah, is that
And then once we get done, if people have any questions of either Bill or Dave, happy to. Happy to answer.
Absolutely.
that sounds good.
So just to discuss briefly this concept plan that we put together, I just want to give everybody a little bit of an overview of the process and how it works and what goes on with the process. So as I mentioned before, we would need to file a subdivision application. What Dave and Bill are proposing to do is to subdivide the property into building lots that would be for homes to be constructed on. We don't have a builder identified. We're not that far along in the process yet. But the goal is just to put ourselves in a position where we can move into the subdivision process. When we get to that point, what the requirements provide for is that we have to do what's called a natural resources inventory, where we go through and we identify any sensitive environmental features that we're supposed to stay away from. And then that kind of defines for us what our building envelope is, where we can put lots and where we can put homes. And so Paul has put together at least a draft of a natural resources inventory. It hasn't been approved yet, and so all of that has to be vetted. But that informs us where we can and can't put lots. The road frontage the property has is on Randonstone Drive, and so that's the access that we would have. And you'll see when you come up and look at it that we have lots that extend off of Randonstone Drive. One thing I will give you a little bit of background about the property is in the RR zone. And in the RR zone, the minimum net lot size that we're allowed to provide is 20,000 square feet. The existing lots in the adjoining community were constructed back in the 60s. And at that time, when that property was subdivided, it was zoned RR, but back then the minimum lot size was 10,000 square feet. So most of the lots in the community are about a quarter of an acre in size. The lots that back up to this property are somewhere between a quarter of an acre and a third of an acre. Our lots will be a minimum of 20,000 square feet, which is almost a half an acre. So I just wanted to give you some perspective on the size of these lots as compared to the size of the existing lots that you see in the community that abuts it. When we go into the subdivision review process, we also have to go through a full evaluation of public facilities, traffic studies and things like that. Obviously, the property's had an operating school on it for many years. That won't continue into the future. But we will do an analysis of the number of trips that would be generated by the subdivision and make sure that the surrounding road network operates adequately. That's required by the county in any type of subdivision application. That's the process that we will be going through in the future. At this point in time, this is really an opportunity, as I said, to evaluate the connections to water and sewer that we're going to be looking at. I would also note briefly that part of the property is in the City of Bowie. Maybe about a third of the property is in the City of Bowie. Our plan, our hope is that we would annex the property into the City of Bowie. And then we would also be working through the city to connect to water and sewer facilities. I think the property is already served by water, but the goal and the hope would be to annex into the City of Bowie, and then we would be working with the city and city council in order to go through the approval processes as well. The city doesn't have subdivision approval authority, but they obviously review every subdivision application, and then we would be working through the Department of Public Works, the city, to connect to the water and sewer facilities. And just one final thing, just to give you a little bit of brief orientation before you come up and take a closer look at the plan and ask questions. So what we have on the bottom of this plan is Rustic Hill Drive. At the bottom, Randonstone. Everybody that lives there knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then the properties that surround us, this property up here is owned by Park and Planning, and the property to our north and to our west is owned by the City of Bowie already. This is the WB&A Trail, and the Berwyn Rod and Gun Club is on the other side of the B&A Trail, just to give you some orientation of the property. So a lot of the properties that we abut are vacant and probably will never be developed. This area that's here that you see lotted out is the area of the property that we're talking about. It's a total of about 30 acres in total. And what we show on this concept plan is a possibility of 9 lots, which is the most that we think that we could fit on the property. By zoning, technically, we're entitled to 67, but we're never going to get 67 lots on the property. We're looking at somewhere more in the 35 to 39 lots, which is what we have shown here. As we go through the approval process, of course, Park and Planning will take a look at it, the city will take a look at it and evaluate the lots for conformance with all the requirements. But at this point in time, that's the approximate number of lots that we think we could probably get if the property were developed. So that's a really quick summary of where we are and what we're proposing to do. We still have a long way to go in the process. We're going to have a lot more meetings here at the city as well as at the county, and we'll want to stay in contact with anybody that wants information about it. So what I'd like to do at this point in time is just to throw it open for questions or comments and get your feedback in terms of what we've presented to you tonight. Sure, go ahead.
I will have the first comment then.
Yes.
And I'd like to stand back there because I'd like to make sure everybody hears what I'm going to say. Thank you very much. Okay. My name is Connie Carter. I live at 12100 Rustic Hill Drive. This is lot number 10. About 7 houses from 197, very close to Randonstone Lane. I have lived in Bowie since 1966, so I'm there for over 50 years. I thank you very much for allowing me to speak this evening on a very important, recently discovered project. Some would say that the city is faced with a very important decision. along with the majority of citizens, to say it's a very easy decision. One that the city, when making their decision, keeps in mind the health and welfare of our over 60,000 citizens. What is getting ready to affect our city will be devastating in a number of ways. Montessori made the decision to sell their property of approximately 30 acres to a developer who wants to build 38 homes behind the homes on Rustic Drive. It really doesn't matter how much the value of the home is. What matters is the impact that it will not only have on the residents of the Rockledge section, but all of Bowie. We are told that the traffic will be minimal and less than the Montessori traffic. I live on Rustic Hill. I know what the traffic was like on Montessori. We are told that it won't be any different. Have you had a homeowner from 38 large homes driving down your street all day? Because homeowners, I think 38 homes would be more than one person. And they've got work, they've got school, they've got all kinds of things that they're going to do. What research has been done to prove that this is true? The citizens on Rustic Hill Drive can tell you that no amount of research can tell you exactly what's going to happen when homeowners have only one street to enter and exit. There is already enough traffic on our street, and by the way, the city has still consistently refused to put the requested calming humps on our street. There are a few things that the city needs to consider, as well as you, prior to voting on allowing the developer to have water and sewer. What happened to the commitment to reduce the overpopulation of Bowie, which was widely touted during the recent election? Did the city have the opinion or the option of purchasing the property? If it did, was it rejected, and why? Has the city ever thought that the Montessori property would make an excellent nature center? The buildings are there, and there would not be any destruction. What a great resource for the residents of Bowie. How much input did the city get from Green Bowie? How much consideration did the city get from their own climate action plan? Everybody needs to go on the website and read it. I had deer, raccoons, possums, squirrels, chipmunks grace my yard with their presence. What will happen as we continue to destroy their habitat? Green space is not only good for animals, it is also good for humans. We need the trees. We need green space. An important fact, the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act, number 16 USC 668-668C, enacted in 1940 and amended several times since, prohibits anyone without a permit issued by the Secretary of the Interior from taking bald or gold eagles, including their parts, including feathers, nests, or eggs. The Act provides criminal penalties for persons who take, possess, sell, purchase, barter, offer to sell, purchase, or barter, transport, export, or import at any time or any manner any bald eagle or any golden eagle, alive or dead, or any part, including feathers, nest, or egg thereof. The Act defines take as pursue, shoot at, poison, would, kill, capture, trap, collect, molest, or disturb. Regulations further define disturb as to agitate or bother a bald or golden eagle to a degree that causes or is likely to cause, based on the best scientific information available, injury to an eagle, a decrease in its productivity by substantially interfering with normal breeding, feeding, or sheltering behavior, or 3, nest abandonment, or substantially interfering with normal breeding, feeding, or sheltering behavior. That's number 50CFR22.6. In addition to immediate impacts, this definition also covers effects that result from human-induced alterations initiated around a previously used nest site during a time when eagles are not present if, upon the eagle's return, such alterations agitate or bother an eagle to a degree that interferes with or interprets normal breeding, feeding, or sheltering habits, and causes injury, death, or nest abandonment. A violation of the act can result in a fine of $100,000, $200,000 for organizations, imprisonment for 1 year or both for a first offense. Penalties increase substantially for additional offenses, and a second violation of this act is a felony. The reason I shared the Bald and Gold Eagle Protection Act with the City Council and everybody here is that there are eagles living on this property. We will do everything we can to fight the development of this green space, however long it takes. Does any of this matter to the city? Does any of this matter to the developers? Does any of this matter to anyone?
Matters to us.
When does it stop? When do you stand up for what you say? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Anybody else have any questions? No? Sure.
I don't know how well I can follow on something like that, but I'm gonna give it my best shot, because you took care of the eagle, but there's also something else we need to think about. It's not just additional traffic, it's not just additional noise and whatnot, but it's also a matter of the climate. Now, the White House is pushing climate change as one of the big issues that we need to deal with. So I went and I did some research, and I found out, according to the EPA and USDA, that the average car, just one car, that it gets about 22 miles per gallon and travels around 11,500 miles a year, produces 19.9 pounds of carbon, puts it into the atmosphere. Now, does anybody know how much a single tree will absorb? It's 48 pounds. So you're looking at 2.5 cars. Now that's approximately 30 acres of land. Some of it, it's not all trees. But I don't know about you, but I've been in Bowie for about 10 years, and I've noticed that as we develop more and more and more, it's getting hotter. It's getting hotter, it's raining less. The winters, we don't get as much snow as we used to, and we should be. Now, if we develop that area, if we cut all that down, and I realize that, it's not all going to be blacktop, it's not all going to be homes and whatnot, but grass and bushes just don't put out the same amount of air that a tree does. There's a reason why God put trees on this earth. It's air conditioning. How many of us have driven down Racetrack Road and realized that we could put the windows down and turn the air conditioning off? That's what trees do. So if we get rid of all of that, the areas that we live in are going to get hotter, it's going to get more miserable, and it's just going to be more traffic, more wear and tear on roads that honestly need some work in some areas. We should be looking at preserving this area, and like Connie said, open it to nature. Open it so people can actually see what nature is like, because there's just so little of it left. I forget the location, but the traffic got so bad they had to put in an extra stop sign. And I don't know about you, but that just adds aggravation. We don't need more of that, especially where we live. So we need to keep the green, we need to keep the trees because they help protect the climate and it helps maintain our mental health and stability of the area. It improves air and water quality. You know, I don't know if y'all have seen in the news, but there are some areas where the water comes out yellow, brown, in some places it catches on fire. I don't want that for this area. We need to keep the green spaces.
I'll speak from here. I live at 12005 Rustic Hill Drive. And I've been there for almost 20 years. When the Montessori school was there, the traffic going up and down Rustic Hill Drive was terrible. The parents were trying to get to the school before they were charged with a late fee. So they would speed up Rustic Hill Drive. We've asked for speed bumps. We've asked for a light at the corner of 197 and Rustic Hill. We haven't gotten it. Now, I agree with what everyone has said, but my issue, when we moved there 20 years ago, I have a little granddaughter. I couldn't let her go outside and play because of the cars speeding up Rustic Hill Drive. Now, if you had this development, where would they come out of? You know, would it be Rustic Hill Drive trying to get to 197? Or are you going to have a road going right to 197? Now, we have enough cars going up and down. And I don't know who lives on Rustic Hill Drive, but there's a black car that has this motor that goes up and down Rustic Hill Drive, wee hours in the morning and during the day. And that noise is terrible. That's just one little car. So I have an issue with your development, and I agree with the lady that was before me and the gentleman, but my issue is the trees, the animals, and the traffic.
Amen.
Yeah, that's.
So I'm obviously very against this development as well, but I'm going to try to be logical. I understand you have your job to do. Mainly, I would like to agree with them. There is no way Rustic Hill can be the entry for this development. I saw the map that was sent out in the mail. It looks like you practically have access to 197. I don't know what you can work out with the city for that, but that's how it has to be. Already, there is near accidents almost every single time on the hill, right at the very beginning, because there's parked cars on both sides and it's not a 4-lane road, so people are constantly across the yellow line. I have seen near misses. I have had a near miss, and we can't have another 80 cars, and that's really what we're talking about here. It's another 80 cars coming and going at all time. And other things I just want you to consider. I'm not saying I'm even for this. I'm just saying that these are things that have to be considered. You have not that much backing into Rustic Hill, but you have private lots and Rustic Hill lots with am I correct, 3,000 square foot homes is what's planned?
That's
Approximately.
an estimate of what they...
Let's just say large homes planned. Rustic Hill and Old Bowie homes are not big. I live right next to Randonstone, as does my neighbor. I do not want a giant house looking down into my single-story home. Most of our homes are single-story. And so it's already bad enough that I will lose the beautiful, quiet character of the woods. I think that you have to agree that you would provide some sort of easement and/or no lots right along there, because that's just privacy invasion and disgusting. So other things, the alternate access, I would also like to know where all these children are going to school. Our schools are already overrun, so where are probably 60 to 70 children going to school? They just finally got rid of the trailers at Rockledge, so I guess those trailers are coming back. So I would also insist that they provide a green area, because I don't want, while our parks, and we have wonderful parks in our development, they are for our area, they are not for your area, and that's just another 80 people. It's part of most construction developments at this point is that you have to agree to add some sort of green area, not just allow for a green area for use. Bowie also has current, so this actually pertains to this water thing. We already are hearing a lot about the current Bowie water issues of like the pipes failing and the rust. Exactly how are we supporting another 60 homes when our water is already sort of like imploding? And they're already telling us they're raising our taxes to like replace all the pipes in Bowie. So I want to know how that's going to work out. I think those were my main things. So yes, thank you for your time.
Okay, I'd like to follow on after my neighbor. I live on Randonstone Lane. I am more impacted by this than anybody in this room. We've lived there for over 40 years, and we were very good friends with your mother. We had a great relationship with Ann Riley, and she would be really distressed, I think, to know by that you're proposing putting a house directly behind my house. You're proposing to go in and out on Randonstone Lane, which is my street, and it's a narrow street. It's not a large lane, it's a small lane. So I can tell by that picture, you're talking about widening that lane. That's taking the easeway off of my property and my neighbor across the street. I'm going to tell you that I will do everything I can to have that not happen. If this development is built and there's access to 197 and there are people going in and out that way, I could live with that. But coming in and out of Randonstone, that cannot handle this kind of traffic. Even before you get to Rustic Hill, that little narrow road cannot handle this traffic. And I agree with what Kira was just saying. The infrastructure in Bowie of our water system was built in the 60s, is old. There are stories after stories we keep hearing about that the city is offering to give people water softeners on their houses and whatever to condition their water because the water is so bad in some of the oldest sections. How are you, this is what this meeting is about tonight, right? Water. You're talking about annexing to the city of Bowie and plugging in on the already overtaxed water system. The system in Bowie cannot handle any more development. This needs to stop now.
I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak tonight. Before I get started, I have a confession to make. Hopefully the statutes of limitation have run out on my misdemeanor. I live on Roundtree. And I go for a walk, and sometimes I go Rustic Lane, and I go to the gates. Sorry. I always go to the gates and look in, and it's so beautiful in there. It's kind of like a hungry child looking in the candy store. It's there, but it's out of reach. Well, I hope you guys are nice. One day I was going by there and the gate was open. I went up to the gate and I looked in. I went in about 3 or 4 yards because I was very much aware that I was trespassing. Okay, very much aware. I just couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. And my whole world changed. It was a whole transformation. It was so peaceful. It was like another world. It's like that I went from hell over that threshold, and somehow I found myself in heaven. And I left something at the gate because I felt peaceful. All my worries were waiting for me at the gate. And then I looked around. Now I'm an artist, and when I look around, I see things. And I saw all the beautiful earth tone colors imaginable, more than any artist could put on their palettes, blues and greens and golds. Oh, it was wonderful. And then I closed my eyes and I listened. I heard a glorious symphony, and every beat and tone and tempo you could think of, full of life and full of joy. Oh. And then I took a deep breath, and I filled my lungs with fresh, cool, clean air that only trees can give us. I love those trees. The sounds, the smells, the colors. Can you even imagine the myriad of life forms that those trees provide? Life forms that we know, like the fox and the eagle, and then life forms that we don't see, but are there, and part of the ecosystem. Oh. So when I found out what was going to happen, or what was being proposed to happen, I started to think about it. And I realized something, that there were already homes there. Not brick and mortar and glass, but there were homes nonetheless. Probably hundreds, maybe thousands of homes. This land has already been developed. The developer's name is God.
Amen.
A few years ago, there was a wounded bird in my backyard, so I called my animal control. I said, could you please take this bird somewhere? Is it called rehabilitating them? You know, they heal them and then they put, I can't think of the word. Yeah. And he said, no, we'll probably just put it down. So I was arguing with him. And he said to me, all the animals belong to the state. And I looked him in the eye and I said, no, they don't. They belong to God. Everything belongs to God because He created it. Okay. He gave us the earth as stewards. It's not our property. We are to be stewards, wise stewards over what He gave us. And like stewards that have to report to their boss, we will be reporting our stewardship to the boss. And the Creator cares for everything He created. Not just His children, but we know from Scripture that He knows when a sparrow falls. He knows when a tree is not there. He knows, and He cares about everything He created. So, how are we going to use our stewardship? That's a question you will have to ask for yourselves. Well, one thing I cannot understand is how anybody can say that they love God and then turn around and destroy what He created. Thank you.
I'll use this map right here. My grandfather purchased this property in 1924. There was one house. Everything on here was woods. You got off at Old Bowie, the train station, you walked down, all the rest of the hill was a dirt road. Okay. Now, he said, as hot as it is today, in this house right here, you had to put on a blanket. It was that cold in Bowie, right there. I mean, none of this was here. Now, when the Montessori school closed, this is our property right here. The city closed off Randonstone because they said, people were going ahead throwing trash, fine. Now, we came down here and talked to the city managers and said nothing could be done. This right here, there's only one question here. Is this for a few dollars more? Because, like you said, all the trees, all this right here, all the trees that we remember, they gone. Okay, everything is gone where most of the people live. Fine, okay, we're glad to have y'all. But this is gone. We had the opportunity where we thought about doing something with this. There's one house on all this property. And our intent was there always will be one house on 9 acres. But right now you're saying, okay, you're going to develop all this as you have the rest. So what happens when all these little dots right here end up being all these little dots right here? Because that's what you're talking about. Eventually, everything is gone. So what's left? Somebody spoke about the nature center. Sounds like a good idea. Mm-hmm. We don't know. But what we can say is this. What was in Bowie is not what is right now. Now, what's the limit? You're talking about houses. Why not put apartments up there? More money, more people. Condos, whatever. We don't know. All I can say is this. Bowie used to be what Bowie is not now. So what will Bowie be in the next 10 or 20 years if you allow this?
I have a question for the brothers. You were speaking earlier about your mom buying the property in the 40s, or no, in the 60s?
60.
Okay, and so she, from what I hear, she created a lot of magic back in that area, obviously.
Yep.
So then you ended it with you're honoring your mother by doing this. Could you explain how this is honoring what your mother created back there?
Well, I think what I mean by that is keeping it as close to a natural state as we can.
With 38 homes?
Financially, we're burdened with having to cover the cost of maintaining that property. It's no longer available to be used as a school, so our thought is that this is the best way to accomplish that without putting higher density that, there were talks of doing.
Apartments, smaller, 70 homes instead of 38 homes. So when we went through all of the different options, we thought, okay, given the neighborhood that is already there, what could we do that would as closely match up to the neighborhood that is already there? Therefore, we discounted doing not condominiums, but a lot of the townhomes that you see up and down 97, stuff like that. We thought, that would not be as nice as homes that would be more similar to what the neighborhood already has. So that's why we reduced the size of, what did you say earlier? It was like 60?
Yeah.
60. If we did individual homes at the same size, then we could do 60. We could, there's a possibility there could be 60. Or if we did townhomes, there could be 130 or something like that. And so we started thinking, well, that's, is that really conducive to what is already in the neighborhood? So, I'll just admittedly say, this is good feedback, y'all, that you're giving us, because it's helping us understand the community that is there.
You're
But
right,
when
because
you
what
talk
I'm saying,
about
that doesn't fit with us at all.
Well, when you talk about honor, we thought that when you see the density compared to what we see up and down 97, we thought this was a lot better plan than what other options are that we've seen up and down the street. So that's where we're coming from. Again, this is not what we do every day. So this is information that we're learning, and this is what we're working with. And we haven't, there hasn't been a feasible study to complete exactly what the details are. This is just a preliminary plan. But when we talk about it, we feel like this is something that is as close to the neighborhood, that conforms to the neighborhood as possible versus doing more higher density townhomes, apartments, things like that. So that's why we came up with that thought process.
Could the city actually buy that property and turn it into a nature thing?
In theory, but the government would have to have the money to purchase it, yeah.
What's the estimated value of the property now? You don't know? Do you know, are you paying property taxes on it at the moment?
I'm not, they are, yeah.
Yes, we are.
What's that? Do you know what your property taxes
I know what the taxes are. Currently, we pay about $15,000 a year in taxes.
are? 15,000? Okay.
Would you consider doing something other than developing the property?
I believe so. I would also want to mention that we've tried already. We've exhausted talking to schools that might want to take over the school. We've had discussions with Bowie State College about utilizing it as a early learning center. We've spent the last 4 years, or longer really, 6 years probably, exhausted any opportunity to try and see it continue as a school with no financial gain to us whatsoever in order to keep Mom's legacy alive. And the biggest challenge we come across is that the buildings are not ADA compliant and they're antiquated and they're it's just very costly to do. COVID probably had something to do with it also.
Do you have, the city already owns another 12 acres back there. What did the city say when you asked them if they wanted to purchase it?
Yeah, I don't recall us having any conversations with the city about purchasing it. Do you have?
So I spent most of my time with the Bowie State College, trying to deal with them taking over the property and having it as a youth, the same size, same age kids that we had. So we had 240 to 255 students, I think, in any given time. So when we did the math on the cars, so somebody was talking about all the traffic up and down. So, they wanted to expand that. Okay, they wanted to we have all the permits and everything and have a school. We would have to refurbish the buildings. We would have to redevelop the property. We have the zoning to do that. It would be way more traffic than what 38 homes would have. I'm just telling you, I spent a lot of time investigating this and doing this on my own time, and with the lady named escapes me over there at Bowie State, and she's like, this could work out great. We have a teacher's college, we could have the school there, we could have them teach over there, this would be great. And then we're looking at 400 and some cars coming through there, which is not too far from, I think we were over 300 before. So they do the math studies on 38 homes and the math on the cars on 38 homes. I know people say it's a lot. It's more than it is today, but it's significantly less than what the school had before. So again, this is really helpful for us because we're really trying to get an understanding of where everybody is coming from to try to find the best use of this property that we don't have to spend $20,000, $30,000 a year maintaining. That's just the taxes, not counting the insurance, not counting the maintenance, not counting everything else. We've been burdened with keeping this up because we care about what our mom did, and we'd like to make something that we think would be a pleasant situation. So I'm sorry that it's not matching up with everybody's ideal goals. I mean, right now it'd be great, you know, but who's going to pay all that money? I mean, you guys want to chip in and start paying for it?
Yeah.
I mean, the city, I'm saying,
The
just,
point is, you haven't talked to the city
Well,
really seriously yet.
when we originally talked to them, they didn't have any money.
Talk to them again.
So,
We can work something out.
We are the money.
right, so, you know, I
We
think
just
that,
knocked out a ice arena that we lost millions of dollars or whatever. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure that they can find some money.
Ron, just to set expectations, I don't think the city is realistically going to be able to buy the property. If we go about a policy of purchasing every bit of green space the developer wants to buy, you're talking $100 million that we just don't have. The city's burning through cash reserves right now. We need to be looking at ways to generate money. We're not going to be in a position to buy this, just realistically. I just want to set that expectation now.
I have a question for you guys about
yeah,
the other deals, or the other offers. Are there other offers? And if there are, what were the reasons those fell through? And I want to say it's kind of a rhetorical question, because my two big concerns about this are going to be the road. The infrastructure does not support it. I just had to buy a $1,000 generator because we lost power. And it took them 3 days. The infrastructure does not support what you guys want to do. I totally appreciate the taxes and getting and offloading the property. But I'd be really interested to see why you're still holding on, why the other offers or whatever for that property had fell through, if they had fallen through.
so you bring up a good point about the infrastructure and the taxes and the water maintaining. You know, one of the things from my understanding and experience in the past and other things is that when they annex that, they increase the tax base.
Who is they annexed?
If they annex it to the city, okay, then the city gets more revenue from the taxes to support the infrastructure. Secondary, and again, I mean, these are great questions.
To help what he was saying
Yeah.
about taxes.
But secondary, they have certain requirements for the development to meet certain guidelines and codes that have to be paid for. So I don't have those numbers today, but I do know that originally, when this was discussed, that it actually will improve. I can't speak for all of the city of Bowie, but as it relates to this particular area, the tax base, the development actually requires financial infrastructure to improve that system and that process. Roads, water, sewer, things like that. That all goes through permitting.
In order to make that happen, the infrastructure in our area, water, sewer, electricity, they have to be improved. That will not happen. It will
Yeah, I don't think
work
they-
in our neighborhood. And you guys say you live in Charlotte. If you
No, I'm
live in
talking-
this neighborhood, you'd start to feel some of the,
Yeah, so what I'm saying is I can't speak for the city, but and these guys might know more detail about exactly how that works, but my understanding is that there has to be certain guidelines and certain infrastructure to be put in order to accommodate whatever it is that's being done. And in addition to that, there's a tax base that is created to support that. So I think it's a great question, and I think that's one that would need to check the box. I mean, I don't think that this,
have you guys addressed this with the city as far as infrastructure, or whether or not it will support this, or are you just that early in the process?
We're really that early in the process. One of the reasons why we submitted this request was to get technical feedback and also to initiate stakeholders meetings with the city sponsors, because we wanted to get feedback from the community, we wanted to get feedback from the neighbors. And so that's why we've started the process.
So just food for thought, but a lot of the issue, I think, with a project like this is going to be everybody on that entire road. I don't live on that road, so, I mean, yeah, it's a little annoying going out. But from my perspective, if I lived on that house, you know, do you want to compensate some of the people that you're taking away their wonderful views? I'm not saying money buys things, but it does change. And you know, you're disrupting that entire road and how they live. You know, might change the way they see this project a little bit.
Can I add, before you get to increase taxes and infrastructure, you're going to impact the neighbors that live on Rustic during that construction. You're talking about taking down trees, you're talking about heavy equipment, taking down trees, bringing in concrete, et cetera, on Rustic. On a narrow road with both cars are parked on there with heavy trucks that's going to impact the road, it's going to impact the street. When you start construction, the people who will let that land, the foundation of those homes are going to be affected by all that construction back there, and the noise, particularly to those homes that have let that land, are going to be greatly impacted, and what notification will be given to those neighbors as that construction is going on. So yes, it may on the back end increase taxes, but the impact at that time for those homes on Rustic as well as for the street itself is going to be greatly impacted. And what compensation or what effect it will be on those homes and what they'll receive afterwards, by then you could have cracks in your foundation and walls coming from the construction. You could have wall streams from the heavy trucks that are going to go. The logging trucks alone that remove those trees before you can get to start constructing is going to impact the people that live on this.
Even I don't even, already we hear those trucks going up and down Rustic Hill Drive. Whether they're going to that development, I'm not sure. But it's a lot of heavy-duty trucks coming up Rustic Hill Drive early in the morning, like 7 o'clock. They start.
How much clear cutting do you own?
Yeah, go ahead.
I live over there on Rustic Hill Drive, and I used to live up in Columbia. I lived here about 5 years, and one of the things I really noticed is that it's a very quiet neighborhood. Even on Rustic Hill, even when the school was there, it was quiet. I mean, the people would come in, it's true they'd zoom in there, but they weren't there, and then they'd leave, and it was just dark. You can see stars there. Columbia, you can't see stars at night. There's light pollution. And it's kind of got like that there. And I'm concerned that this road, all the people coming in, will just build up a lot more noise and kind of ruin that road. I take a walk every day down Rustic Hill, 2 dogs walk around. There's a number of us that just walk around. You might have seen me out there. You know. So I just worry that it's going to do that aspect of it. I guess you got your house, your mom's house or something is right there near it, right? It's on that side. You know what it's like to be there, you know? It's just a nice neighborhood. Again, I haven't lived there that long, but compared to Columbia, I actually like Bowie a lot better. I think it's safer too. I mean, that neighborhood seems safe with Columbia, you know? So.
How much excavation would be needed for that? Would it be significant?
I think it would be because it's very hilly. It's not a flat.
Yeah.
It's not a flat property.
I knew Ian Raleigh also, and I know we've been there since '86 in that neighborhood. And when people, we're down at the bottom of the hill, Rustic Hill, some people were down here on Raymore and Brown Street. And just in those years we've been there, with people taking out a few trees here and there, the difference in our property from when we moved in there, sometimes it's like a swamp. Once they start removing all those trees and taking the nature out of there, we're all downhill. I don't know what's going to happen to our property down there. And just like you said, with the construction and all, we have cracks from small earthquakes in the area.
Absolutely.
You know, we have cracks in our house now. And that, when all this construction goes on and these beautiful trees are taken out, it's going to really affect us badly. I think Ann would love a sanctuary there.
My name is Al Goff here. I own all this land right here. So it abuts right to the Montessori property. Many fond memories of Ann Raleigh. She was a beautiful person. She was a tree hugger. Her daughter, Susan Byron Byrne, she was a tree hugger.
She is.
I worked on the property. Al, you got to go around that little poplar tree. I said, it's a major deal for me to go around, kind of dig it up. She goes, yeah, but do not hurt that little poplar tree. That's how much they thought of this property. They loved that property. And, towards the end of Ann's life, she smoked a lot of cigarettes. I think we all know that. And she got really unhealthy. She had to ride a golf cart everywhere. She could barely walk. But we had a lot of conversations. And she loved the trees. She loved the wildlife. As mentioned by Connie, there is at least one eagle that lives on the property. And it has a mate. And it gets visited. And the one eagle talks to me just about every day. It's a magnificent bird. I've been sharing pictures. I've sent pictures to you of the eagle. There's about 12 deer that live on there. Right now there's 4 fawns, there's 2 bucks, and the rest are does. A bunch of raccoons, possums, foxes, every day, hawks, yeah, every day I see them coming through. My house here, this was built in 1906. This was all Mainer property, to tell you a little history of this. There was just the Mainers and the Bates.
Bates.
And I knew your dad very well. Mainers and the Bates. And I know a lot of you people. I've lived here my whole life, so I can tell you a lot about James. And I'll tell you a little story because Joe Maynard, you know Joe Maynard? Old Joe? Yeah. He passed away in 1969. But Joe Maynard owned all that land there. And he didn't want to sell it. He was approached, I don't want to sell this. This is my whole life. It's my soul. Well, Mr. Maynard, there's a thing called intimate domain. Now, he was a doughboy. He fought in WW1. And those of you who remember Joe Maynard, he was exposed to mustard gas. So he always walked like this. But he was one hell of a man. He died around, he was about 86 years old. He was splitting wood. He used to have a sawmill back here. Anyway, he owned all this land. But they told him it's called intimate domain. If you sell us your property for fair market value, we're going to lock you up. Sheriff's Department's going to haul you off your property. You think I'm kidding? That's what they do.
They can't do that.
What's that?
I read the Constitution and I read about eminent domain and I went to Black's Law Dictionary and they cannot do that.
They do.
They do it.
They'll lock your butt up. Well, yeah, have your hearing, but we know how that works. So I used to own this land here where 197 is. I didn't want to sell it. Some guys in suits, I'm lawyers, nothing personal. They're like, you know what? Have you heard of eminent domain, Mr. Gauthier? I said, look, guys, I get it. I know you got to put the road through. This is BS, but I'll take you to court. At the time, I was a Prince George's County police officer. I will take you to court. I'm not a stupid hillbilly. You're not going to push me around. I will drag this thing out as long as I can, and I don't care how much it costs me. I'm like, geez, this guy's serious. They came back later and they said, we're going to move the road. So it can happen. If if you're willing to fight, they move the road over that way. Okay? Intimate domain. I mean, no one's mentioned that today, but this could be intimate domain. It's for the betterment of the community. Think about the tax base, how much tax money the city of Bowie will get if this is put in. Big bucks. And I've worked for PG County, I've dealt with government, I've dealt with Jack Johnson, Wayne Curry, all those guys. I've known them all, dealing in government. And there's a lot of cash and envelopes that go under the table. Am I wrong? It's about money. And with all due respect to the gentleman that owned the property, if anyone in this room had a piece of land like this and they said, hey, we got a developer, I'm going to give you like $3 or $4 million for this thing. That's a lot of money. We might all say, hey, I'll take it.
No.
You know how many times I've been offered for this? They wanted to build 110 townhomes on my house, on my property. They want to develop all my land. I get it. It's driving me crazy. I don't even answer my phone anymore. They want to build homes on my property. Now, a couple of people mentioned the easement. Now, years ago, Ann Raleigh purchased an easement from Fred Jones that goes along here between the DAV to 197. So why not put a road there? I've had people ask, why don't they just, instead of this, why don't they put their own private road here and have a traffic light? That's a great idea, right? But here's the problem. You mentioned about topography. This piece of land, according to Sprint, and maybe some of you remember the Sprint Tower on my property and what I went through on being the bad guy, where I got beat up by the community. But one lady in particular, she's very old now, she's not here, but I told her, taxes are expensive here. If I get a cell tower, I'll make sure this stays woods and open space for the rest of my life, because now I got something helping me with my taxes. But as far as this topography goes, they can't put a road up here, they've already tried. The grade is too steep. They'd have to go through a variance process or bring the road onto my property to get on there. They already know that. These folks are smart. They're just, and I think everyone up here knew you all were going to put up a fight. They want to see how much of a fight. I'm impressed. I mean, I almost cried at one point, and you guys are incredible. I am proud to be a neighbor with all of you people. You know? Yes. But by the same token, I respect these gentlemen over here. Yeah, well, the City of Bowie, you know, maybe they don't have any money, which is baloney. They could buy this for maybe $1 million, or a developer, $3-4 million. I mean, I don't blame them at all. I would, you know, if I was them, you know, and I'm in North Carolina, I don't give a damn about Bowie. What the hell? That's right. Yeah. Right. Go ahead, build it all you want there. You know. Yep. I've got land. I purchased it from my dad a long time ago. I want to keep it in the family. My kids aren't interested in it. Nobody's interested in it. I want to preserve it because, you know, I got my fur babies in here. All the deer come to me and they're like, they walk right up to me like, hey, how you doing? They think I'm like their dad.
We know how that's like. Our backyard.
Yeah, I've talked to you before. The eagle over here is the most magnificent thing. It's unbelievable. And Connie brought up all the laws about the eagle, but let us not forget National Harbor had about 12 eagles. And they couldn't build that National Harbor, and then on one weekend, accidentally, some workers cut all the trees down, and the birds were dying, and oh well, no more eagles. So, you know, I'm a little cynical about government, but this land right here is the most beautiful piece of land in Bowie. We call it Bowie, West Virginia. Because it's like, there's no other, this is the highest piece of land.
You find your way out of there.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I've personally seen a fatal at Rustic Hill right here. There's a speed camera there. Everyone slows down as soon as they get past the speed camera, they floor it. So I get all that noise, motorcycles, you know what I'm talking about. Rustic Hill, the way they made this thing at 197, there's not enough room to pull in the median. I've seen 3 or 4 cars T-bone right there. Right. They would literally have to put a traffic light here. So they do these so-called, you know, the studies and stuff, and I don't really buy into them because it usually takes several fatals before they change it. And people come in, and keep in mind, now this isn't just this. Across the road, they want to develop all of Temptation Farm. And that's real close to being developed. How's that going to affect infrastructure? And that's an old 197. So, but I'm here to say that, you know, I know a lot about this property. If you have any other questions about it, and I was very good friends with the Rileys. A lot of respect for Ann and work for Susan. A lot of infrastructure here that I helped build. Barns, outbuildings. This would be a beautiful 4-H property where kids could come and learn about wildlife. And years ago, the Rileys had horses. There's a beautiful flat area with a natural spring, a gorgeous natural spring, where you could have horses. This would be a wonderful equestrian center. Then maybe, you know, if they want to, you know, put other things here, we could have. I mean, I don't know about why business is bad, because every daycare I go to is just, it's swamped with kids. So I think that could also be something to look into. But I love the idea of 4-H and having a nature center. But, you know, I personally wouldn't want to lose all this and have to listen to all that, and hear cars crashing over here. And, you know, it drives you nuts. But I don't know. I think I made my points. Anybody have any questions I'm going to answer on this?
No, but there's...
Very good.
Yeah, it's me again. Sorry, it's just my brain doesn't turn off. But listening to everybody talking then, it seems to me the reason why they're doing this is because of financial purposes. Let's face it, we all work for a living, so we know what that's like. I don't know how my mom found out about it. I think it was through her brother, but there's an organization that for land that's undeveloped, they pay you to leave it undeveloped. Now, right now, it's not available in our county, but it's a matter of these poor gentlemen are trying very hard to pay the upkeep. Now, I don't know what all y'all's backgrounds are or whatnot, but some of y'all might know a few tips, a few tricks, but I think if we want to preserve that area, we have to do more than just sit here and object. We have to give a solution. It's not enough to just sit there and say, we don't want this. We have to sit there and contribute. It's like being on a boat that's sinking. You know, we can sit here and object to there being a hole in the hall all day long, but until we sit there and plug the hole, we're going to keep sinking. So if y'all have any ideas to help alleviate the financial burden for these gentlemen, maybe get in touch with Mr. Esteve or them directly or somebody. That way, they won't feel pressured to sell to a developer. So,
Like a conservation easement or something,
yeah, I mean,
or open space?
maybe somebody here knows a nonprofit organization or several nonprofits that would be willing to step in, pool resources to either help alleviate the tax burden, buy it outright, or whatever. But we have to help with a solution or possible solutions. Saying no just isn't enough.
Christy Pearson, Randonstone Lane, been there since 1998. We moved from College Park actually to Bowie, my husband and I. Raised all our kids in Bowie, kids all went to Bowie schools. My question is, when I bought my house back in 1998, I paid $123,000 for my home, and it had a pool. We thought we were living large. The house is now in the neighborhood. If you guys I think everyone just got the tax statement. I just got mine. My house is $400,000. Wow. Okay? That's great. But if these new homes come in, what are we going to sell our houses for?
You won't sell them.
Our value is going to go down because why am I not going to go buy a brand new spanking house instead of one that's built in 1968 with everything falling apart? You have to redo your whole house just to get something out of it. So how is the market for our neighborhood going to change? There's already houses up for sale. You have renters coming in. People aren't buying, they're renting. They're renting it out as a property. As you can tell, a lot of my neighbors are still original owners. I see all my neighbors. I remember, our kids growing up together and, having this come in, what's it going to do for our value of our homes on top of everything else? So that's sort of where it's selfish as it is, but, if I want to get out of my 2-level colonial and move to Carolina, what am I going to get for my house? So.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. I mean, I'm happy to stick around, answer questions if anybody wants to come up. Take a closer look at the plan, talk with Bill or Dave. But I appreciate everybody coming. That's exactly what I wanted to have this community feedback. I appreciate everybody's comments. And we'll be back in touch with Joe, and we'll be following up with everybody.
Yeah, this will likely come up before the city council, probably in September 19th or October 3rd. And so there'll be a public hearing here. You can't speak as long as you did tonight. There's a time limit, but we'll send another letter out. I'll send a letter to everyone that got the letter.
Did you make sure that everybody gets it? Make sure everybody got it.
Oh, you just sign up tonight, Joe? But we'll send out letters to the entire neighborhood.
This isn't the only change in zoning for Bowie. Is that correct? I mean, how do you have like
Water and sewer thing, it's not a rezoning. So it's not an up or down vote. It's not an up or down vote. If you meet the standard to be approved, you'd approve and then you move to the next stage. So we appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Please let us know if you have any questions. Call the planning department. We'll put you in touch with these guys if you have any good ideas.
Hey, folks, I just have one quick question. So, 3 of your council members are here tonight, Councilmember Harrison, Wolfley, myself. I do have a sincere question. I'm just curious feelings in the room. So, I've heard from a couple of your neighbors specifically that they would like the city to reach out to Bowie State and continue a conversation that apparently has already started about keeping this going as a school. I'm thrilled to hear that you guys were approached by them. Here's the thing. I don't want to waste Bowie State's time if they come up with a proposal that we just shoot down in 6 months anyway. So if Bowie State's willing to acquire this property, put in a very large amount of money to renovate the school and use it for what they were proposing, is that something you guys would be open to and comfortable with?
It depends on what they put there.